When we say them the number one for the chart, more big up on the cell phone, when the cable gonna stop back on the mark. Shock out, girls. Come on, watch this. Number one up on the look good chart. Well, up your one girls are you may talk. Number one up on the look good chart. Well, up your one girl are you may talk on the chart. There's a killing to dip on the chart, on the chart. Jamaican girls on the chart, on the chart. Russian girls dip on the chart, on the chart. Canadian girls on the chart, on the chart. The English girls up on the chart. So, anytime you see them, me can't make them pass. Me have to say something, man, in a them be off like I cherry pie. Say me love how you walk and your sexy smile and me love your sweet talk and anytime me see you, you no stop break me heart. You are number one up on the look good chart. Well up your one girl and you me top. Number one up on the look good chart. Jump around girl and you me top. Number two said them have to back off and number three said them have to stay off and number four said them have to stay off and number five man it have to stay off and number one man you run the park and well up your one girls are you me a talk. You are number one up on the look good chart. Uptown girls man a them me a talk. Number one up on the look good chart. Downtown girls man a them me a talk. From a girl a number one that means that she a champion. From a girl a number one she a preserving one. From a girl a number one that means she ever elegant. From a girl a number one that means that she a champion. And anytime me see her say me have to sing this song congratulations. And view the nation. Call you me tell you now, girl, you are number one up on the look good chart. One of the one girls are you me a top. Number one up on the look good chart. Jump around, girl, are you me a top. And time me see them man, you know me a top.
Just in recognition, as we know, I've started off with a dancehall vibe, right? So in recognition of this subject matter, there is one song that I have got to play to welcome Dr. Sarah Webb to my lovely platform. So I could not play this song. I'm smiling already because I'm just extra. I'm just dragging out the introduction to this song. Because Sarah, I have to play this song. Right. This one.
Why two you want to tell the girl them up browning? All of the girl them a run go shop for bleach. Cause them want brown skin. All of the girl them. And them a bleach out them skin, them a bleach. We look like a browning, them a bleach. Them a bleach out them skin, them a bleach. We look like a browning, girl me honor you. And you no bleach out the skin. You know use no chemical, we look like no browning, girl me honor you.
Oh, look, we've got people from Texas. Hello, Texas in the house.
90% of the girl them
hello. Oh, no, we got loads.
Girl nowadays them want brown skin. So put your man and tell them about the browning. Every girl say them want the color of the pumpkin. So them run and shop up pick up my brown skin and them a bleach.
Them a bleach out them skin. How can I not play this song? I beg anybody tell me that you can find a better, more relevant song. Because you know in Jamaica we got to come up with a song for anything and everything. It needs a song. There's a song for everything in Jamaica. Everything. But let's see, you know this tune, yeah? You know this tune.
Like a browning, them a bleach. Them a bleach out them skin, them a bleach. Me look like a browning, girl me honor you. And you no bleach out your skin. You no use no chemical, me look like no browning, girl me honor you.
Sorry, this song always makes me laugh. I can never listen to it with serious face. But, you know, we'll get with it. Joseph, you know this tune? You know this tune, yeah? See, all the people that know this song with their little Caribbean heritage all coming out now. All coming out now. This is what we need for Thursday night. Thursday night, my time.
She a bleach. Feel look like a browning. Girl, me honor you. And you no bleach out your skin. You no use no chemical. Feel look like no browning. And me honor you. Cause you no bleach out your skin. You no use no chemical. Feel look like no browning. Me say black it and the color of the African skin. Say tell me how some girl want brown skin. Every day them get up and them try the bleaching. Not to them really want the color of the pumpkin. And them a bleach. Using a the roller, you know them a bleach. Use the ambi and you know them a bleach.
I'm so gutted that I can't see who some of these people are, but you know, I just appreciate you. Fly the flag for Jamaica. You know what I mean? Fly the flag. Right, anyway, that's enough now. 5 minutes. Honestly, Sarah, this would be me for like half an hour. Let me just pause. Then my bleach. Honestly, it's a tune. It's a tune. But Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited. I like that the chat is already so active.
Yeah, I know. It tends to be my music choice. I either get cussed,
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? Or they go, oh yeah, I'm feeling this one. So this one clearly was a good one. So this one was a good one.
Yes.
So I'm gonna hype you up for a little minute. So you just have to sit in your queendom, because I'm gonna hype you up for a minute. So I'm actually trying to remember where I came across you or when. I can't remember, but we have a lot of people in common that I know like and interact with your stuff. So I kind of feel like maybe it might have been through that. But so I do follow you on Instagram, but you are a superstar on Instagram. You're also a superstar on TikTok, which I didn't even know. But I'm on TikTok for rubbish reasons, like entertainment. But you are a star on TikTok, and you talk about colorism.
Mhm.
So, but I'm just going to put the topic of what you talk about to one side. One of the reasons why I adore you, in the sense of not knowing anybody, but I adore you anyway, because you so sit in your pocket of who you are and like what you're here to do. And even though, because I see the hot mess in your comments. I thought my life was bad on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh Lord, Sarah's gonna have to do another post to go and explain to come and get some people together, because some people getting in their feelings.
Yes.
And I appreciate the fact that you never let that take you off your stride, particularly, and I'm going to say this particularly about this subject, and we'll get into it, particularly when it's people within our own community that don't like some of the things that you're saying, or the way that you articulate, or the fact that you're speaking real truth for stuff that happens in our community that we don't talk about enough.
Yes.
And we also don't recognize how we perpetuate the very things that we claim to be anti. Like we want to stop racism, we want to stop this. But we don't look in the mirror and realize that we don't come correct. So you are the metaphorical mirror, in my view. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that, because our shit is not together either.
Right.
Right.
Far from it.
So that's why I adore you. So that's why, as you know, this has been months in the making. I was like, hi, Sarah, sliding into your DMs. Hi, Sarah. So, September, it's October, what are we going to do? So it feels fitting that for the UK, it's Black History Month. So we've got you here today. And so I'm going to shut up now, because I always have to gas people up. So that takes about 5 minutes. And I feel like we can't just be one line. I'm not reading nobody's bio. I'm giving you authentic gasation here. Do you like it?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. So why don't you, just tell me your story. Actually, we're just going to kick off. Tell me who you are. Tell me your story, how you got here, and then, because I know how you got here, but I also then want to use that as a segue into now the conversations that you're having now and what you're trying to unlock in the here and now.
Yes. So I'll start with where I am for anyone who's new to me. I am the creator of Colorism Healing, which is a global initiative that I started in 2013 to raise awareness, to let people know what colorism is, how it impacts us, how we can solve it, right? And to foster healing. So healing being personal healing, but also healing relationships amongst people, and then the systemic cultural healing that needs to happen. And that involves a lot of edutainment on TikTok and Instagram, and now YouTube and LinkedIn too, a little bit. But also, workshops and professional trainings and webinars for businesses to kind of give people practical strategies and approaches for how they can address it on their team or in their community or in their particular zone of influence, if you will. And it started with, just blogging, because I'm a writer by training. And so when I realized that I wanted to address this, I was like, well, what can I do? I was like, well, I leaned on my skill set, right? I leaned on what I was already good at. And it was in 2011 when the Dark Girls documentary came out. I'm not sure how many people have seen it, but that was the first time I had seen public acknowledgement of it. It was almost like oh, wow, this thing that I experienced is real. And it's not just me, right? And so I kind of had that feeling, and I realized that by me talking about it, other Black women get a similar experience. They get to say, yo, it's not just me. I'm not just crazy. It's not just all in my head. Like, I'm getting my experiences confirmed and validated because here's research on it, or here's other testimonials. And obviously, for those who are able to see me, I am a dark-skinned Black woman raised in the United States. And I also come from a multicolored family. So a lot of families in the diaspora have different skin tones within our family. But in my immediate family, I have a light-skinned mom, a light-skinned sister, and then my dad and brother are dark-skinned. And so that made me aware of the differences early, right? And especially having a sister, because we were both girls. She was lighter, and we're only 3 years apart. So it was very clear to me very early, like 4 or 5 early, that people praised her and would ignore me, and that, people assumed she was the good sister, or the friendly sister. But again, like, it wasn't until 2011, when I'm in my mid 20s, that I actually had the courage to name it and give language to it and articulate that. And so much of the issue with colorism is that people don't know how to talk about it. People are afraid to talk about it. People get defensive when you try to talk about it. So kind of like what you're saying about some of the comments, it is an uncomfortable topic. Like, we're going to keep it real, but I'm looking at the heading. It says safe space for brave conversations.
All
and I
day.
really think it starts there. We have to have the courage to show up for the conversation to begin with.
Sarah, can you just, because I've got so many questions, so I'm just going to attempt to rein myself in a little bit, because I'm like,
no, let it go.
Yeah, I know. And I know you're always ready, so I'm not even worried about that. But for the benefit, because there's a lot of people who are going to be tuning in and like not letting anybody know they're tuning in, right? Because there's a lot of curiosity about this subject. How would you define colorism for people who are not used to hearing that term?
Yeah, so I define colorism as a social stratification in which people with darker skin tones are at the bottom of the social hierarchy, and people with lighter skin tones are at the top of the social hierarchy. And this is independent of race. So even if people are the same race, like, if we're all Black, the African Americans or the British, with darker skin will have lower socioeconomic outcomes, will have attain less years of education on average, right? And so it's parallel in many ways to racism, where we compare Black individuals with non-Black individuals, and we see disparities and inequalities between the races. And so even within the same race, there are parallel disparities. And so even, some studies look at siblings who grew up in the same household, right? Because then people try to say, well, maybe they were just raised differently. Like, no, they were siblings raised by the same parents in the same household around the same time. And the lighter skinned sibling disproportionately attained higher levels of education than the darker skinned sibling. And so I always emphasize that aspect of colorism, because what people most often know are like the bullying and the name calling. And that's definitely a part of it too. But I like to emphasize that it's a social stratification, and it's not just being called a name.
Yeah, it's the inherent value or not of somebody, isn't it, according to the lightness of their complexion. I mean, this is probably like a real oversimplification, but I remember having a conversation with somebody about this a couple of weeks ago, and what I was saying to them is it's because of this proximity to whiteness in color, right? Yeah. So the idea is that some people feel like they're giving the safe Black people opportunities because they are inferring, and they don't even realize they're inferring this, but the lighter the skin tone is, the less threatening that individual is.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of implicit biases. So people talk about racial bias and implicit bias around race, but what a lot of the research shows is that most of the implicit bias is based on what the person looks like. And so that's a big thing with colorism, is that people talk about race and color as though they're synonyms, but they're not. And a lot of times we rely, and let's just be honest, as humans, we rely on what someone looks like in order to determine or perceive their race in the first place. And so the studies are showing that the more easily identifiable you are as a Black person, the more of these biases you experience. And so when you get lighter on the spectrum, when your hair texture gets a little straighter, when your features get a little smaller or thinner, then the bias, the implicit biases are not as strong in terms of, the negative stereotypes. And so that's definitely a reality that people still are not aware of.
Yes. And I think this is not my story to tell, so I'm not going to go into detail because it genuinely isn't. But in my extended family, so not in my immediate family, it's really interesting for me to know that my mum is what you would call light skin. Actually, in Jamaica, she would be called red skin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what she's got. And to be honest, when I was growing up, I don't ever remember having any thoughts about the fact that she has a different shade of Black. I was genuinely, when I knew we were having this conversation, I was trying to think about it. But I do know in my extended family, like I have aunties who are of different, as you said, multicolored in the shade perspective, right, of skin tone. And I definitely remember some stories about how one of my family members was treated in comparison to everybody else. Particularly this notion of when you are bad, the darkness of your skin color also comes into the sentence of your. Do you know what I mean when I say that? And even as I remember hearing some of these stories, like anecdotally, when you're too young to process, and as I got older, and then now because of this work I do, I think that's why this topic really hits me on quite a personal level, because I know how damaging it is to identity. I know how damaging it is to self-esteem, because when you're insulting people, whether it's one Black person insulting another Black person or a white person insulting a Black person, I've never understood why the darkness of somebody's skin color is like a next level insult.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I mean? So it's always the thing that gets called out, and you're blacker than Black. Right. And we have a saying in the UK, like blickety black. So if you go in the sun, when I go in the sun and I come back very dark, and people are like, oh my God, if you smile, you just see the whites of your eyes and your teeth. Right. There's Black people who don't like the sun because they don't like their skin color going darker.
Yeah.
And people don't believe me when I say this. And I'm like, oh God.
It's true, Shireen. And there are, in the United States, it was actually some of the same things, right? Like, oh, we only see her teeth and her eyes, right? We only know you're there when you smile.
Right.
Or, when you're, and then there's the using Black as an insult, right?
Yes.
And this is from people who say, oh, well, I love being Black and we love Black people and we despise racism. But then those same people will turn around and use Black as an insult, and they don't mean your race. They're talking about your color. Literally. And you'll have people say, well, yeah, Black is beautiful, but that's Black. And it's the
that's too Black.
And the voice.
That's too Black.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. We see this sort of pro-Blackness as long as it's not too Black. Right. And it's divisive. And I think when it comes from family in particular, so it's interesting, some of the stories and anecdotes you heard growing up, I think it is that much more wounding, and that people have to realize it's one thing to experience racism from strangers or from society, but so many people have to endure colorism in their own homes where they should feel safe, where they should feel affirmed and appreciated. And so that causes even deeper wounds.
Sarah, listen, oh my goodness, like honestly, you're maybe start going blah, blah, blah. Right, because I feel like it just cuts deep, because you're already, like you said, we're already excluded and rejected from mainstream society, for want of a better word, because of Black as our race. And even though we know Black is a political term, I know all of that. This is not about that. But then, as you said, when we're getting into the value that's not only, so the mainstream can be something, but if you come home and that is continuously reinforced, it's a bit like you said, like the favored you know, the lighter skinned sibling being more favored, having more opportunities, the one that's, you know, particularly if it's a girl, you know, where, you know, described as more as prettier, and you can wear certain things and get away with it because of your skin. But if you're darker, that people start giving you different sorts of advice because of the darkness of your skin. Therefore, you cannot do fill in the blanks. You cannot wear this. You cannot wear this particular hairstyle, this particular lipstick. And like, I really wish people understood more that this is like a day. This is a day to day. This is not something of the past. We're not talking 1960s, 1980s. We're still talking present day.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important for people to know that in many cases, it's not even that explicit. And I think that's what's so dangerous about it, is people might not ever, they do often call out the darkness, but even if they don't, they'll still treat their children differently, right? And I've seen like fraternal twins, like two boys when I was teaching high school, they were fraternal twins. And one was very, very dark skinned, had the kinkier hair texture, the fuller features. And the other one was a few shades lighter, but also had like a thinner nose, right? And it was interesting how even when people, other teachers, other professionals, even when they weren't going to explicitly call it out, but it was so clear to me that they were being biased against the darker brother. And so assuming that he needs remedial courses and praising the lighter brother as being an honor student, and oh, he's so talented and smart, why can't his darker, insert darker brother be that way? And so people, for anyone listening who's like, but I never notice race, is important for you, or color. I never notice color. I don't see color, right? Is that, you know, for those of you who think this might not involve you, like most people have some type of implicit bias against darker skin, even if they don't use the explicit language to go with it.
Right. And right, I'm gonna not go. I'm gonna go one place before I go to the other, because I do want to. I do, because this is what happens, right? Because I was like, stream, right, stay focused. I do want to talk about colorism as we see depicted in the media. So I want to come to that, but I want to leave that for a minute. I do want to talk about, though, and again, I can, you know, I know I've got some people who are of Caribbean heritage here, so maybe they can share some of their stories. But I can tell you definitely in Jamaica, because it's what I know most, right? There is still this thing that the lighter, the better. And then that is reinforced by beauty products to lighten skin. And so I remember coming down to, I didn't grow up in London. I grew up in the northwest of the UK. Everyone outside of London used to call me country because I had a really northern accent. And when I used to come down as a teenager, there was, and I don't know if anybody remembers this brand, but Palmer's, who do like cocoa butter and, you know, the oil, they had this fade cream. I think it was called like Fade Success or something. So it was like a white tub. It's like a little white tub, blue labeling. And I remember my cousin used to use it, you know, because it technically, it was meant to be, you know, for like the dark patches on your elbow. Why anyone would want to bleach that, I don't know. But this is what I was told. 14 years old. Right, this. But then what they started saying, this was teenagers, just to be crystal clear, is if you use it all over your body in like 6 weeks, it will become like, you'll become lighter. And I never, like, genuinely, it just did not make any sense. I was just like, what? Why are you trying to like I don't understand? And so the reason why so I'm not casting any judgment on this, because, you know, I'm sure people will have their own versions of this story, but even before the mass media in the way that we know it, because, you know, mid-90s we weren't consuming social media, so you can't blame social media for that. So even then there was still something subconsciously that said having lighter skin tone is better, even as a teenager, if my cousins didn't understand why. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe they did and I don't know, but we can't blame social media, because I know everyone blames social media for everything. You can't blame it then. Mid-90s, you can't blame it on that.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting because you're talking about the products and how, you know, so capitalism definitely is designed to make us feel like we need certain things.
Yeah.
And so like they perpetuate, like corporations, businesses make a lot of money in perpetuating this as well. And there's what's really to blame is the white supremacist anti-Black ideology as a whole. And that will always find its way to us. Right now it's social media, but in the past it was billboards or magazines or textbooks or, graphic posters or, any type of propaganda. And so it's not about like a specific kind of media. The people who benefit from us thinking we're inferior will always find a way to make us feel that way, or try to anyway. And the way that they capitalize off it with the skin bleaching creams is, sometimes you'll see very explicit ads that like, oh, you need to use this bleaching cream to get a job.
Yes.
Right. And so like you're saying, it's not, this is not a critique of people who use bleaching creams, but it is very much a critique of the systems that are exploiting that and are perpetuating these ideas to enforce the ideology that dark skin is inferior and that lighter skin is more professional and more beautiful and just more sophisticated and modern and appealing in general.
And I think, I'm trying not to impose my view by asking you this question that clearly gives my view, right? So I'm trying not to, but I'm definitely trying not to, but I do, one of the things that I've reflected on in my journey of almost trying to undo the conditioning of internalized oppression, right? And really trying to just understand like who my identity is outside of responding to racism and white supremacy and exclusion. Do you know what I mean by that? Do you know what I mean? Who are we when we're not always fighting to combat the stereotypes, to do, to prove, to do. So, who, and one of the things I also thought about is how this whole idea of an ideal version of what a Black person should look like to be accepted by the white majority. Part of that, you have skin color, which is not something that I've ever. So I can genuinely say, I think, because you never can be 100% sure, it's never crossed my mind that I'm too dark or not light enough from that perspective. But I do know if I go to a different country, begin to the Caribbean, to Miami, wherever it is I've been to the sun, right? When I come back, part of me always doesn't want the darkest skin tone, not because of how I feel, but I don't like the comments that come. And so my question to you is, do you think that's still part and parcel of the same thing? So in my mind, I don't feel like that's something about my identity. But equally, if I wasn't concerned about how other people perceived me, I wouldn't be concerned that my skin I literally go 3 shades darker, no word of like, or like literally. So is that part and parcel of the same thing? Because I'm compartmentalizing it, but maybe it isn't.
I think there's an important distinction to make. I think it's necessary to make the distinction. So W.B. Du Bois talks about double consciousness, and I think that's what we experience as darker skinned Black people, is who have not internalized it, right? Who have not internalized white supremacy or anti-Blackness. And we say, the frustration, the tension, and the pain often comes from the fact that the world cannot seem to see us the way we do. Right. And so I think it is part of the frustration is not just that people are saying you're less attractive or you're ugly or whatever, but it's that because I don't see myself that way is the reason I'm upset, is the reason I'm frustrated. Right. If I agree with you, I'd be like, yeah, I'm ugly. And that's, I just have to accept that. But it's because I don't agree with it. It's because I do feel that feels wrong to me. It doesn't, I don't feel like that's right. And so this is where the tension and the inner conflict is coming from, is that it doesn't feel authentic to my soul, right? To have those narratives be embedded in me. And I think there is an important difference for people who have internalized it, right? So the people who do end up believing and being conditioned to think they're inferior, because it takes a different kind of work, different kind of efforts to come out of that kind of hole or space, I think.
Yes, I think somebody I've just seen here, sorry, I don't know who this is, apologies, but who said sunbathing and sun tanning is totally discouraged. Yeah, I know people that have said, like, you want to be careful, you know, extended family members, you don't want to get too dark. And I'm like, what?
Mhm. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
These are Black people.
And
This is not this, and this goes back to the point. This is not white people saying this. So put white
right.
people to one side. This is Black people saying this. You don't want to get
Yes.
too dark, you know.
You don't want to
And
get any darker than you already are.
Right. Right.
Yes. And even the ways that, because of these things, Black children are policed and are literally not able to be free. We're not fully liberated because it's like, oh, don't play in the sun. Don't join the swim team. Don't play beach volleyball. Don't play soccer, right? And so there are all these ways that, because of that belief, we have place a cap. We place limitations on our lives because of that. Like, I can't just enjoy the beach because, oh my gosh, I might get darker. And so I think it is a question of our freedom to move about the cabin as we please, right? To move about the world as we please in a way that is joyful to us without the anxiety of always worrying about getting darker.
That's the thing. And I know there's lots of people commenting here. Oh, Elizabeth, why are you coming with this question now? I'm trying to like ease Sarah into some of the hot messness that's in the world. Sarah, do you have? I'm going to show Elizabeth's question because you know Elizabeth is always supporting. Hi, Elizabeth. You see what I mean? I'm just like,
yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely. How about the trend of wanting mixed race babies? This is a very, very common trend. One of so I do an international writing contest every year, and so one of the first poems I ever published was called "The Baby Factory" by Cassandra Alford. Shout out to Cassandra. But she was addressing that very thing about how a lot of Black people have justifications such as, well, I don't want them to go through what I went through. I don't want my kids to have to experience the stuff I had to experience as a dark-skinned person. So I'm going to perpetuate colorism as my answer to colorism.
Recognize it though, Sarah, do they? They don't recognize it.
They don't. And then there's also just the belief that mixed babies are inherently prettier, inherently cuter, right? And then in some places there was like cultural campaigns to marry non-Black folks or to procreate with lighter and whiter folks. In some parts of the Caribbean and Central and South America, there was mejorando la raza, bettering the race. And so that equated to whitening the race, lightening the race. And so there's this belief that the generations after you will be better off in society if they have lighter skin. But here's the catch-22, is that because of the social stratification, that is actually the case, right? They will have more opportunity, more access if they are lighter skinned and have a certain hair texture. But I think when it becomes problematic is back to what we were saying just before this is, so do we just acquiesce to the systems that be? Do we just acquiesce to the status quo? Do we just acquiesce and submit to the way society is currently structured? Or do we have some dignity and self-respect and self-love and say, look, I know that that's the way y'all set things up, but I'm not going to just lay down and take it.
Right. I'm not going to co-sign that. And there's a zillion times I've heard, whether it's white people that say to me, oh, you know what, I'm not, you know what I love about Black people is that when you mix Black and white, it just produces the most beautiful of you. Do you have that in the States a lot? Because in the UK, you can trip over. You have the most, you create, and this other one, and I see this replicated on TikTok, all hot messiness. And I hate to say this, is a lot of Black men perpetuate this as well, who also say you can take the ugliest Black person and the ugliest white person. Did you hear this bullshit?
Yeah, and from Too Short. Too Short was just like,
all the time it's perpetuated. And then the combination produces this, and they go waxing lyrical about, the beauty of this, mixed race child. Part of me also thinks, and I don't know where you sit with this, but is that not an element of almost fetishizing? How do you say the word? You know what I mean?
Yes.
How do you even say that? fetishizing. Is that how you say it?
That's right.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. In my mind, like it didn't even sound like I was, because I do make up words, you
It's
see.
a
So I had
tough
to check
word.
I was. Yeah, I just check I wasn't
It's
making it
not
up.
comfortable to say it.
Yeah, it's not a comfortable word. But there's almost an element of that, because it's this idea of the exoticness of blackness, but not blackness in all of its beauty, but only a specific aspect of it. It's like an extension of the one drop idea. So all of a
Yes.
sudden, like, you got black in you. Look how everybody else, and all the, and yeah, I just wonder
Yeah.
what is that?
It is a fetishizing. See,
It looks
not alone
sharp,
in the.
sharp, thank
It
you.
doesn't roll off the tongue nicely
No, it
at
doesn't.
all.
What's he said here? Fetishism. I can't even say that word. I'm sorry. I'm being honest. I'm struggling with that word. I can say
Yeah.
fetish. I can't do anything else with it.
It is
Yeah.
definitely a fetish.
Yeah.
And it's dehumanizing at the end of the day, because, and this is how because people make the preference argument, right? Well, it's just my preference. And literally, you're deciding that someone is beautiful when you haven't even seen them. Think about whether or not that's logical, right? And this lets you know that it is a fetish, that it is a conditioned, prejudiced belief. Or even if you call it a preference, I still say you can have a racist preference. You can have a colorist preference, right? They're not benign preferences. They are conditioned. And so for you to just assume like, oh, if you are light-skinned, you're beautiful. But you haven't even seen that person yet, right? And so it's not based in an actual response or an actual observation. And so that's how you know it's all in your mind and not actually like, oh, I tasted pepperoni, and so that's why I prefer pepperoni versus, pineapples and ham on my pizza, right? Is that you're saying no matter what they actually look like, they're beautiful because they're light. Or no matter what they actually look like, they're beautiful because they have straighter hair. And so it is dehumanizing at the end of the day, because you're not acknowledging them as a person. You are glorifying and valorizing features, like shallow features at that. So
and shallow features that change with age. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
And I do look, everyone's coming with so much real talk today. I don't even know. Right. So we're gonna get into this. I don't know if you saw, I think you see, this is why I got to keep up with your content, Sarah, because I like, if I blink, like I miss stuff. I think you might have caught this. So we had I'm gonna bring this up, sorry. Lisa Hurley coming with some real talk. Where's she coming now? Right. This is why Blackfishing. Right. So we had a few weeks ago, that Diddy song. Is it Bad Boy for no, what's that song? No, but it's not Bad Boy for Love. What's that song that he did?
Yeah, Bad Boys.
Yeah, was it? Bad Boy, right.
Yeah.
And then we had this white woman. She's a white woman. Just to be really clear, she ain't got no one drop, half drop, nothing. Right. She's not Mariah Carey with her like 2% or whatever it is. I don't even know what she got going on, but you know what I mean. And all of a sudden, I'm so shady. I know. Luckily, Mariah ain't watching this. She's not watching this. But so she came out with this. So she did this song with Nicki Minaj or whatever else it is. All of a sudden, I was like, is this girl biracial? Is she mixed race? Because all of a sudden, she looks blacker than Nicki Minaj.
That's Shireen. So can I say something right quick?
You could go ahead.
So she looks blacker than Nicki Minaj. I'm glad you said that, because this brings up something that I haven't heard people discuss yet, is that because Nicki Minaj is actually black, she can't afford to look too black. And because this other artist is actually white, she can afford to look blacker. And that's the difference. But also, like, to Lisa Hurley's point, Blackfishing works for white women because people like their blackness to be a certain way. And I said this when Rachel Dolezal and like Rachel Cruz and like all these like other people were blackfishing or black passing, as they say, is that they would not have been eager to do this. It would not have worked out well for them if they transformed into me. If they transformed into 4C hair with like my skin tone or darker.
Right.
They could gain privilege amongst Black people by passing as lighter skinned, racially ambiguous, or having the look of a mixed race person in Black spaces. And they would gain more privilege in those spaces than they would normally have in all white spaces. And that's why they're doing it. Because this artist probably could not compete with Taylor Swift in that genre. But as
she ain't good enough. She's not good enough. Like
exactly.
I said it. Another bit of shade. I said it.
As an artist, though, because of colorism, she can definitely top the charts in Black music genres. You understand? Yeah. So don't be fooled. And it's not even like cultural appreciation. No, it's money.
No, it's not.
money.
No,
she don't appreciate Black culture.
No,
She's just
but you know what
money
was really interesting? I got so much to say about what you said, but what was also really interesting in that particular moment is there was a lot of, I'm gonna call them out. There's a lot of Black men who said that Black women were hating on her. This is the white woman, sorry, not Nicki Minaj. So forget Nicki Minaj and her, put her to one side. I'm not going to do any more shade. I'm coming like Santana. Do you know what I mean? Saucy Santana, shading everybody every 5 minutes. We can put that to one side. And so people saying like, she's just there enjoying the music, Black women are jealous. So my argument with that argument was that right there was anti-Black racism, but also that was misogynoir as well. So there's always this idea that even as Black women, if we're going to call out questionable behavior, right, from people who we feel like are co-opting or exploiting proximity to Blackness, or right. So I was just going to say, Sarah,
you talking
right? So if we call that out, we're hating, we're bitter, we're jealous, we're this, with this, with this, and you're a bit like, are you insane? Like, listen to yourself. And then when we think about this whole idea of, to your point, about white supremacy, about exploitation, about capitalism, about this idea of not being safe within your own home or within your own community, that is a classic example of how Black women do not even get protected by the very men within their community, because they will still go with the white women who have proximity to Blackness to make themselves more attractive. Like, it's so messed up. It is so, like, when you say it out loud, doesn't it sound ridiculous?
It does.
But this is the reality. Do you understand what I'm saying about this? So you've got these women who, through proximity to Blackness, appeal to be more attractive to Black men, but also to financially benefit off a system that they know will afford more opportunity to those who are white or have proximity to whiteness. So it's literally win all round. And then we, as the darker skinned Black women, or we as Black women full stop, who call time on this, we are the ones that are bitter, jealous, envious. I'm like, please make it make sense, because it makes absolutely no sense. I'm glad it makes sense in here, because like people are clearly getting, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm probably not the most articulate in that, but you get what I mean.
No, sis, that was exactly the point. You were spot on. It was crystal clear, and it was 100% accurate. And I agree, like you are speaking the truth. You are saying the things, right? Because Black men, because of male privilege, right? Because of patriarchy and misogyny, they get to have it both ways. They get to leverage their status and their clout and their capital as men, while also being hedged or protected from critique, because they can call racism if we critique them. Like, well, why y'all always trying to bring a Black man down? Why, we have to deal with racism out, and at home, and
we're getting shot in the streets. Well, yep, we're getting right.
Exactly. As if Black women don't also experience racism, but okay. And it's true, because society, culture has conditioned Black men and men of all races to protect, uplift, value, and validate white womanhood, right? Like, that was a project. That was an intentional project, is that we're going to position white women as the prize. We're going to position white women as the standard of womanhood and of femininity. And we're going to give her a Black woman as the exact contrast to what we're saying a woman is. And so all people are taught and conditioned that we should protect them. We should rush to their defense. And we're simultaneously conditioned to think that Black women can fend for themselves. They're the ones causing the trouble. Even when they're drowning, they're really just being overly dramatic, right? And so our Black men have definitely been complicit, especially on the world stage and media, but even like interpersonally, in upholding these white supremacist systems that ultimately destroy them as well, which is the sad part.
Yeah, and 100%. And the other thing that I was just going to add, like, I'm just like stoking the fires now, because I was like, yeah, I'm stoking the fires. But the other thing to also add is the inherent value of white women who are positioned in this way. They take some of the aspects of Black women to further enhance that value, to reinforce the fact that they can still sit between these two worlds. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like even on their own, and I'm talking in simple terms for somebody like, oh my God, they're so divisive. But this is real talk. We're giving you absolute real talk right now. On their own. So look at how much of our culture, our ways, our knowledge, our things, even in these spaces right now, Sarah, I kid you not, you can trip over the amount of white women who co-opt, who steal the work of Black women.
Oh, yes,
who
ma'am.
steal our phrases,
yes,
who steal our work, who steal our words. And so we get labeled.
Come on.
Is divisive, is this. They will take our same portfolio, our same words, our same phrases, our same intellect, our same creative output, do exactly the same thing and get lauded and rewarded for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So,
yes.
And so the system keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we criticize that, we get told by everybody, why are you criticizing? Because, you know, if you feel really strongly about it, then you could do that. And you're like, we have done that because it is my work.
Yes.
But nobody, to your point, is rushing to our defense, your defense. I've got lots of examples. Before people think, no, trust me, I have lots and lots of examples of this. Nobody's rushing. And you can literally see the differences night and day.
Yes.
White woman tears, Black woman angry, she's angry,
right.
she's angry. Like, why can't you? You see it play out every single day.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the gaslighting too. Like what you were saying there is that the gaslighting that Black women experience, especially if we're darker skinned, is that, oh, you're angry for what? Nothing's happening. Nothing wrong is happening. Why are you so angry? And we're sitting here knowing like, no, there is some BS going on that we need to be angry about, right? But y'all are telling us it's all in our head. We're making it up. We're angry for no reason. That's the problem. Like, no, we have valid reasons to be upset, perturbed, pissed off, and angry. It's because if someone came in your house and claimed it as their own, you too would be mad, right? And then the other side of that is the marker of privilege, right?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing that Black women get killed for, berated for, railroaded for, gaslit for, you get to make money off of. You get to increase your followers. You get to increase your status for that same thing. Like that is the very marker of privilege, is that you can don locks and you're like, oh my gosh, she's so brilliant. Look how fashion forward she is.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Right. So
I think somebody said here, sorry, look, sorry. Listen, I know we're preaching today, but somebody did ask, I saw it briefly, who said, is that colorism or is that racism? The reality is it's both.
Yes.
But going back to the whole point about colorism, the degree to which it will impact is less or worse according to how dark you are, even within your Blackness.
Yeah.
Right. So going back to this point about safety, like I can't tell you whether it's in music, whether it's in lyrics, whether it's in conversation, whether it's whatever, always this idea. And I'm going to go back to Black women yet again. She black and she ugly. right?
Let that sit in the air for a little
She
bit.
black?
Because
Has she ugly? And to your point, the blackness is not about ethnicity. The blackness is about literally the darkness
correct.
of her skin. So it's like the ultimate so the insult on its own that somebody is ugly is not enough.
Correct.
You've got to add in the darkness of skin color to really lay that insult out on the floor.
Yes.
And apply to black women.
Right.
Right. So that means when a darker skinned black woman is asking for help, who needs help or whatever else it is, she does not get the same amount of help that a lighter skinned black woman would get, which is who still doesn't get as much support as what a white woman would get, but still better.
Right.
Because this is what you're talking about, that spectrum, isn't it? And that it's all about the spectrum. But also they don't get believed in certain situations.
Correct. Yes.
Because, and the reason why that is, I'm just going to take it one level deeper, is because it does not trigger the same protection instincts. So their pain does not trigger the same protective instincts that a lighter skinned woman being upset, needing support in the same way a white woman needing. So we've got to rush to protect, but she's all right.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's
she's
why
she's strong. She's a strong one. She got over it. She's strong.
Exactly.
She'll push through. So she doesn't need, right? And that's where, when somebody asked about, racism, but it's the impact of colorism, because again, it's about this value according to literally how dark you are. And your treatment can be, if I had somebody that was really a lot darker than me, there are some things that maybe I might be treated that little bit better, even though we're both black.
Yep. I mean, and it's the same thing. So people who have a hard time understanding the spectrum thing, it's like if I make $50,000 a year and someone else makes $35,000 a year, neither one of us are millionaires. We're both working class people. We both have regular jobs, go to a 9-to-5, have to clock in, clock out. But you can't tell me that $15,000 difference is not a difference, right? And so you don't have to be white to have a slight advantage over people of your same race, and sometimes a great advantage, right? Because again, as Black people, we kind of run the gamut. And so when people talk about, oh, but we're all Black, and so it doesn't make a difference, it's like saying, oh, we're all human.
Right.
Right?
It does make a difference.
It does.
It does make a difference. And I think, and I also think, hence why I quite provocatively called this kind of, racism versus colorism, is because a lot of this is not absolute. So for people who are trying to fit everything into a really neat box and say, well, is that racism or is it colorism? Like, it's both, right?
It is.
Different degrees. It will manifest itself to different degrees in different ways. And this is where I want to just briefly, before we get to the media stuff, because I don't want to come back to that, but I just want to open this up a little bit, Sarah, and have you talk about some of the work that you do on a global scale, because we do know that colorism impacts many other global majority communities. And so how does some of the work and the conversations you have there differ or are the same according to some of the particular issues that we see within the Black community?
Yeah, so I see them as being mostly the same. I think one major area of difference is that in the Black community, there's a lot more convoluted discussions around colorism or versus mixed race identity, right? And so there's this whole question about, if people say I'm not Black enough, I'm experiencing colorism, which that's not what colorism actually is. And so I think in more racially homogenous or ethnically homogenous places or like parts of the world, it's easier to see what we're talking about when we say colorism, because most people identify exactly the same way racially. But even in all these other countries, y'all, I'm telling y'all, all of them, the lighter skinned folks, the ones with the more Eurocentric features, or in some cases, the more Chinese features, but still lighter, right? Very much pale skin, being at the top of that social stratification. And the darker you are, or the more indigenous you look, the lower in the social stratification you end up. And I think that's, at the end of the day, regardless of what our individual experiences might be, we have to acknowledge that, one, this is definitely a pattern amongst Black people around the world, but it's a pattern amongst humans. It's a pattern across humanity that this color stratification exists.
This is just a really random, it's probably got nothing to do with the price of fish, but I'm just going to ask it anyway, because, literally my brain is ticking. So where do you think it comes from that a lot of white people are so desperate to tan, but they don't want to be Black? Because I don't know if you have a view on this. It literally just popped into my head. I was like, where does that all come from then? Right? Because there's anti-Blackness there. They don't want to get too dark, but equally they don't like being too pale, so they want to tan, and then they do the whole, I wish I could be as dark as you. Do you get that? We still get that bullshit here. Oh, look at me. If I put my arm next to yours, look.
Yes, we're almost the same color. I'm almost as Black as you.
Oh, shut up.
But it is a very interesting thing. So I do have thoughts about that because it comes up all the time. One, people usually throw that out there to say colorism is not an issue because...
Oh, no, I'm not throwing it for that reason.
I know you're not.
Yeah, listen, I just need to be crystal clear. No, that ain't it. So don't anybody start coming in and chipping in with their anti-Black racism because that's what they thought I meant. No.
Right. So one, I always respond with this first fact. That is a really recent phenomenon.
Right.
White people, Europeans, have bleached their skin for centuries to be even paler than they naturally are. When we look at depictions of Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah. The powder. Yes.
The powder. And they would paint artificial veins on her skin to make it look like her skin was translucent.
Sarah, oh my goodness.
European women were bleaching their skin. Okay.
Yes.
And so this is a really recent phenomenon that a lot of historians have said came with the rise of the Industrial Revolution and sort of the rise of the middle class. And the middle class was, created by capitalism. Oh, because you have to take vacations and you have to buy products and buy stuff for your home, right? And so then it became a class symbol to be able to vacation in the Bahamas for the summer. Yes. To be able to travel from northern.
Then it became a sign of your elite status.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But also going back to the blackfishing thing, it's also a sign of just how white you are that you can be darker. That, again, that goes back to, and I actually, when I was the first time I taught a class on colorism, one of my white students put it to me in this way. She said, yeah, it's okay to tan if you're white enough to tan. Right? No person of color is out here trying to tan. And so it is also almost like flexing your white privilege to be able to say,
that ultimately you can still
tan.
Right.
I'm in the sun and I'm not tripping about it because I'm white. Whereas the Black folks and the Indian people, they're like, no, don't go in the sun. Let me wear my parasol so that I can stay in the shade. Right? Yeah.
I just had to ask that question because
it comes up
in the UK. Yeah, in the UK, we got this whole conversations about this whole tanning thing. And to be honest, a lot of the microaggressions that I know a lot of people still deal with to this day is British summer. I remember I put in a post on LinkedIn. I was like, listen, if you want to save your hand, don't go up to anybody and say I'm almost as dark as you just because you've been to studying Costa del Sol in Spain, right? We don't care. You're 2 weeks in Jamaica. We don't about business. Don't come back talking. Don't come back about your time. We're not interested. Because that's that whole, it's this whole thing about, as you said, opting in and out. Yeah. Oh, like you. Look, I'm always as Black as you. When it suits you. Well, when the police is coming, you don't want to be our skin color, so you could go home. Right?
Exactly. Yes. And there's also this sort of thing that a lot of it's related to colonization itself, right? Is that, as white folks, we get to sample a little bit of everybody's culture and we have a right to try on these other ethnicities and we have a right to let me see what it would be like to braid my hair and get a tan. I just want to, explore. And it's that is part of that colonizing mindset of that you have a right to all of these things.
Right. And again, when people call you out from it, you get to play the victim.
Oh, that part.
But I
That
was
part.
just appreciating it. Why is it not? It's just a hairstyle. It's just a this. It's just a
Why
that.
are
It's
you
just a.
attacking me? I feel
Why are
attacked.
you attacking? You're always attacking me. I just find it, and you're also angry. Like if you just lowered your
Why are
voice
you
a
being
little
so
bit,
aggressive?
yeah,
I
just
don't
came to me with a
understand.
little bit more. Yeah, we're all just human beings. Or no,
Right.
no. But interestingly though, and this is the, as much as we can laugh and joke because it is a hot mess, it's a hot
Yeah.
mess. But I think somebody keeps saying like every so often, who is this Charmaine? The Kardashian curse, right? Unfortunately, and I can shade all I want because no Kardashians watching what I gotta say, but that is a prime example about how you can adopt blackness. I'm going to put in inverted commas, right? So the same thing as black women we get vilified for: too big boobs, hips, bum, skin color, hair, etc., etc. You can buy that from a surgeon. You can co-opt the culture. You can make yourself more attractive for black men. So you then have mixed race babies, and it's all designed. I don't care what anybody says. It's all deliberate. Because you are then able to benefit from both worlds.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You can still rely on your white privilege and
Yeah.
know that you can step into places above and beyond people who are genuinely of that culture.
Correct.
And still make your money.
Correct.
But you can also, in inverted commas, drop it like it's hot and be surrounded by your homegirls and your homeboys.
Right.
Because you've co-opted part of, in inverted commas, the black culture. That means you are accepted there as well. I mean, it's really smart when you think about it. It's like it's massively smart, but that is the system because we don't get to do that.
Yes, it's so true. And it reminds me too of like when a lot of like white women who do like want access to like black men or whatever, and they're so down and they're like, yes, and I went to a Black Lives Matter protest. And
I heard you were looking for me. Bitch, here I go. Right? I heard you were looking for me, right?
But then when they get a little, their feathers get ruffled by a black woman, the first thing to come out of their mouth is what? You black, bitch.
Right.
You nigger. But I thought you appreciated the culture though. I thought you was down.
I thought you loved it. I thought this.
Right. I thought you loved black people.
The second things don't go your way,
right.
We are literally. I go back to this whole idea of the ultimate insult. It's not enough to call somebody, a bit of this or this. We've got to go for the skin color as well. So what does that say? What does that say? So listen, can we talk about colorism in the media, please?
Yes.
Can we go there? So, and I promise, because I knew I'd go around the houses.
So I think for anyone who might not know or might not be aware, colorism in the media often shows up as the absence of dark-skinned women in films, or the presence of dark-skinned women in very stereotypical, demeaning, or offensive roles. Yes. So I say it's underrepresentation, but also misrepresentation. So it's like both of those things happening in the media. And then there's an over-representation of lighter skin and or biracial women, right? And that's the thing. It's because people are talking a lot about Zazie Beetz playing Stagecoach Mary and The Harder They Fall, and people like Zendaya and like Ruth Negga and Tessa Thompson, like all these like biracial women, and how they are also, though, a specific type of biracial woman. Because what I know, not everyone knows this, but there are people who are technically biracial who are my skin tone, right?
Right.
And so it's both. That's why you said it's both racism and colorism, right? So yes, it's the racism of, oh, we want someone who's biracial, but we also want the light-skinned biracial people with the certain hair textures. We don't want the biracial people who pass as black or who look black. And so it's very much overrepresentation of that aesthetic and under and misrepresentation of darker skinned women, especially when we have wide noses and natural type 4 hair. Yeah.
It's a big, and I was seeing something, I don't know if anybody's seen this. Again, so this is how I just get clips of things, so I don't have time to sit and watch it. Now, Amara from Love and Hip Hop Miami. I can't tell you, but I've seen. I've watched all of the Love and Hip Hop franchises. I've got my opinions on. Since Jocelyn Hernandez left, I'm sorry, I've been the same. So I'm like, I need her back. I need the Puerto Rican princess, because like without it, there's nothing going on for me. But Amara is doing, I think, like Gloria Estefan and her sisters are doing like the equivalent of table talk. Is it red table? Red table? Yeah, whatever. Red table. Red table? Is that what it's called?
Red Table Talk.
Thank you. Right. So she's doing an equivalent. And I love her for speaking out about the Afro-Latina experience, because that's what she's saying. And she's talking about this. And I saw a clip just the other day where she said, everyone has this idea, this stereotypical idea of what the ideal Latina looks like. And it's they never incorporate the Afro-Latinas, you know, because she said we're just erased, you know. And even so, that's really interesting that even within cultures, because of particularly in South America, because of slavery, right? And we think about the mix of the people coming, the enslaved people coming from the African, or being stolen, not coming like they're coming on a holiday, you know what I mean? the way I'm saying it, anyone think they just went on a holiday and just ended up here? No, they were taken, Shireen. So, you know, they came, and when you think about how much those cultures are intertwined, I think that's why it's doubly hurtful, I think, that we still have this notion, you know, and even in South America, even within the Latina community, there is still colorism. Just to your point, it's a global phenomenon.
Very much so.
Even the erasure of Black people who are so intertwined from a cultural heritage point of view and a history. You know, when you go to, so my family on my mom's side from Cuba, you know, so when you go there, and so just to keep hearing different iterations of this conversation, you know, whether it's Amara doing this here, we're having this conversation here. Australia, there's a lot of people I'm connected to in Australia who are doing a lot of work around First Nation and Indigenous people, like the real and truth telling, and again, people being erased and views about their level of beauty or ugliness according to the colonizer's view or the European view of beauty. And then the colorism within all of that. It's also deeply, deeply damaging, but yet it's also massively frustrating that through our own discomfort, we're still trying to not talk about it. You know?
And I think Amara La Negra is a really great example of colorism in Latin America, because you'll have, so Latin American media and Latin American news and Latin American politics, again, they had, you know, these cultural campaigns like Mejorando la Raza, or bettering the race, whitening the race. And they, in their media, they perpetuated that image of Latin America. And so we can't be surprised when people outside of that context have that image of what a Latina looks like, of what, you know, a Brazilian woman looks like, of what a Mexican woman looks like, because those countries and their media outlets purposely, in their own countries, limit who's seen on TV, limit who's on at the news anchor desk, limit who are the athletes they put forth as, you know, shining stars. And so that's all, in terms of media, that's all many other people have ever witnessed who have not traveled to those places. And so it's both a fighting for recognition within their own cultural circles, within their own countries, like, hey, put us in the media, because you have people out here not even acknowledging that we are also, you know, Latinx. And
they're not in the novellas, they're not in, they're not anywhere. Complete erasure.
Yes. And you'll have go ahead. I was going to say, you'll have a lot of like African Americans when speaking about an Afro-Latino person saying, oh, I thought you were just Black. Right. And I'm like, but that's, so Black can be any ethnicity, right? Like Black is sort of the racial category, and we can be Black British, we can be Black Australian.
Do you not find it funny though, Sarah? What is it? Like, this is a rhetorical question, but you know what I mean? What is it that everybody else gets to say, I'm Brazilian, I'm Spanish, I'm French, I'm British, but as Black people, it always has to be context with our ethnicity or our Blackness, meaning our skin tone first. Everyone else can just be French. and nobody questioned. Spanish, nobody questioned. Chinese, Japanese, like you said. But if you're the context of, oh, but you're Black British, you got to put Black British. Oh, you're Mexican. Oh, I didn't know there was Black people. So you should have told me you were like, what, Black Mexican? Like we all, like even we have to label when nobody else has to do that. Nobody else has to do that.
But that's, it's a rhetorical question because I know,
I know, right? I'm not putting you on the spot. I just, it always just frustrates me though with this idea that we're still dealing with the fact that we were our ties with our homeland, wherever our homeland was. Let's say, African, the continent. I'm going to start there. Those of us who can tie back to the African diaspora, which we all can, whether some people are in denial, but that's where we all come from. But that was deliberately severed because people with no home are unable to use that as a way to uplift their identity.
Ooh, you're getting deep, girl. That's the juice right there. Yes.
Right.
And what I want people to realize, right? So if we want to tie it back to colorism, so one of my favorite speeches by Malcolm X is, how do you make us hate ourselves? How do you make us hate our hair? How do you make us hate our nose? How do you hate us make our skin tone? Is by making us hate the place we come from. So not only were those ties intentionally severed, as in we're going to erase that lineage for you, so you have a really hard time tying yourself back to a specific region, but also we're going to make you hate that source, right? Yes. So one, you lose connection to it, and we're going to control the narrative through many and multiple forms of media and communication channels. We're going to control the narrative about what your home actually is and who those people are. So not only do you not have the ability to find out for yourself, but now you're also being fed lies about it, right? And so I know now we say, oh, well, there's no excuse not to know but this started before the internet. This started before the printing press. This started before mass communication on any level, people controlling the narrative about what Africa was like. And so people from Africa in the diaspora, even if it was by choice, even later on when it was by choice, there's still this narrative about the dark continent, right? And the savages and
like, are you sure? Are you going to be safe there? Are you gonna like the whole thing? And I'm ashamed to admit, me as a great, like, obviously I've fixed up now, just to be really clear, because don't nobody come for me and trying to educate me with sending me DMs about, you don't need to do that, please. You don't need to do that. But even I bought into this idea of like, so I've been, it's like a standing joke in my family when we go on holiday, and I'm like, my holiday money is going to the continent because I'm ashamed of how much I've given to different European countries that didn't even welcome me as a Black person when I suddenly went to visit, but I still gave them my money. And I've gone to the tourist elements of the African continent. Do you know what I mean? Like not going to, the countries or, that I have ties to, because I have had this perception about what it was like. So, and what people also don't understand, that is also internal, because that's our mother country. That's like where we, that's our home.
It is. And it's, you can't hate the tree without hating the roots of the tree, or you can't hate the roots of the tree and not hate the tree, right? Which I think Marcus Garvey said. But that is definitely where it stems from. The anti-Blackness and the internalized anti-Blackness is very much wrapped in perceptions, negative narratives about the continent of Africa, for sure.
Yeah. Which therefore, going back to your point, has an impact on when we look in the mirror and what we see reflected back.
Yeah, because that was also an insult when I was growing up. When I was growing up, it was an insult to say, you look like you from Africa. Go to Africa. Like other Black people.
I went over there and I said, I remember saying to a friend of mine, and even though it's African American, like I couldn't understand this. And I was like, but why are you so insulted that that person, the guy said, you look like you're from the Congo? Is, because he's got family over there. And he's like, I'm African American. Yeah, but you've got Africa. So I couldn't just get my head round. I was like,
it's not logical, isn't it?
Right? I was like, but I don't understand why you're so upset. No, I'm African American. Yeah, but Africa.
Because
like,
you got logic, you make logical sense. This stuff, colorism, racism, is not logical, and so they do sound illogical, irrational when they talk like that.
Oh, goodness me. Well, Sarah, listen, we've been on for 1 hour and 15 minutes, so I think we've got to wrap it up. People are like, listen, I want to play some music. And what I'm going to do, because there's so many comments, I think we've been going for so long, people have chipped off. I don't know if they're still commenting. We just can't see. I've got no idea what's going on down here. Let me see.
It was a lot of action.
No, it does. No, because what happens is, like, I think LinkedIn allow me to play ball for like a certain amount of time, and then afterwards they're like, oh, she's still going. Right. So I'm gonna play some music. Hold on, and I'm gonna show you some comments.
Yes, please.
Right, let's go and play some. Oh my god, I haven't heard any. Look, right, let's play this. I haven't heard this for ages.
I will never be what you want, and that's alright. Got my skin ain't light, and my body ain't tight, and that's alright. But if I might, I'ma stand and fight. I will never be what you want, and that's alright. I play my own damn tune.
Sorry, this is nothing to what we're talking about, look.
And very soon, I'll soon fly over you.
He's gone now.
When I fly over you, the sun around the universe. You, the sun around the universe.
Yeah.
You, the sun around the universe. Never in the morning when I wake up, I pray for you, and then I pray for me. That's soon you'll see how love can be. Our love will set you free. What's it gonna be?
Yeah.
See the beauty in your eyes.
I see it though. It happens way too often.
Yeah, nice. Bleaching.
I will never be what you want, and that's alright. Cause my skin ain't light, and my body ain't tight.
Thank you for that.
I will never be what you want, and that's alright. Cause my skin ain't light, and that's alright. Tell me, can you stand around the universe? Make it touch and do. Thank you, stand around the universe. Thank you, stand around the universe. Thank you, stand around the universe.
Yeah. It happens. It does.
How are people such a hot mess out here in this shit? I'm just gonna keep that moving. I don't know who that is. Like, I don't want to cut your friends. Look, they put friends in inverted commas. But it's speech marks. Yeah, no, I don't want to cuss. Right, let's play. I'm gonna play this last song for you, Sarah. Let's see this.
All right.
Your choice. Let's see.
It's a throwback.
Is it? I love it.
70s, I think.
Oh my God! Sorry, let me have a moment.
Just watching as the world goes past.
Get it, Shirley.
So many things to see my face in the grass.
Hey.
If I was the children, I'd take it out of sight.
Hey.
The sun beaming down.
I hope nobody can hear me singing.
I'm gonna be
It's done.
Can you dig it? Everything here is so clear, you can see it. And everything here is so near, you can feel it. And it's real, so real, so real, so real, so real, so real. And you see it. Woo! Can you dig it, baby?
I love Charlie. It's a real song.
The sun beaming down and the birds starting in it.
Yeah. I know.
Everything here is so clear, you can see it. Everything here is so real, you can feel it. And it's real, so real, so real, so real, so real, so real. And you see it.
That one. That's the comment.
Can you dig it,
Listen.
Yes.
Right, can I just play one more song? I know we should really be getting off, but it's Friday, Thursday evening. There's one song.
Can I just? There's a comment by Amazement on YouTube. I don't know if you can tell on the
where are you seeing this? Oh, okay, this must be nice.
About the grandmother.
Sorry, hold on, I got scroll. Your eyesight is so good. How are you even seeing this right? Here we
It's
go.
like on the far
There we go,
right. There we go. I like that one.
Amazement. I don't know who you are, but your mother sounds Jamaican. Your grandmother sounds Jamaican. I swear. Sorry, you know what? This is a side point. I found this song came up in my Spotify last night, and I forgot how much I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just gonna myself.
I like it.
When you're all alone.
We're gonna have to do a jam session one day. Just a jam session.
Always. Listen, you're welcome anytime. It's always party up in here. We break it up with a really serious show. We take it to church, and then we got to give you music.
Don't you feel like a crying? Don't you feel like crying? Don't you feel like a cry? Come on, cry to me. Oh, nothing can be said than a glass of wine. Loneliness, such a waste of time. Oh yeah.
Well, Sarah, listen.
You don't ever.
Yeah. This was fabulous.
We'll be here all year. I know. Look, sorry.
Love it.
I know. Eventually, LinkedIn will kick me off. They always do this.
Really?
Cut my lives. Like you've been on for an hour and a half, always the way. But I haven't been on for ages, so I feel like this is a good time to show up. So, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your truth and just your healing. I feel a little bit healed. After seeing some of the experiences that people are sharing in these comments, I think we all need it.
Yes.
So
I do think talking about it is definitely a part of that healing process. Talking about it honestly. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, because we hold nothing back. When I do lives, like honestly, people are thinking, they always say to me like, aren't you a bit worried about some of the things you say? I'm like, no, open source information. Because look, my argument is, if you don't have people in your circle who talk on this level, where are you going to get your information from? Because if we're going to rely on the mass media, I'm not being funny, but we might as well all go home. right?
Yes.
Like I don't. This is so nothing to do with anything, right? So this is nothing. But I do feel like I've just embodied Santana for his messiness. But I'm just gonna say this one time. I don't know if you've seen, like, I don't know, talking about Red Table Talk or whatever it's called. Like, what's going on with Jada? Why is she out in all of Will's? Like, why is she out in her business? Why is she talking so much about her? What? Why? Can you just?
Girl, I don't know. I haven't been hearing the latest stuff, but
right. So I'm just going to give you. You don't even need to go to the shade room for this. I can just tell you this.
Okay.
So she's telling like everybody about how she's trying to convey her needs to Will, and he ain't meeting those. Yeah. You know when you just think to yourself, girl, why are you still talking?
That's unnecessary. That's unnecessary.
Like anybody else, you must have said,
what
like,
do you want us to do about it? Like,
but Sarah, why is she talking all of her bedroom business? Like what's going on there?
And they had already like exposed so much between the
entanglement.
two of them. Yeah, like I don't know. Is it like a PR stunt? Like grasping for attention, trying to stay relevant? I don't know.
But you know, when you just like, maybe in her mind she feels like she's been open with people, but nobody wants that open as Jada. I just feel like she just needs to. Yeah. So anyway, that was it. Literally, it had nothing to do with nothing to do with colorism. Just because somebody mentioned Red Table, and I'm just thinking like Jada's taking Red Table to next level. She's just like Open Table. You don't even need to subscribe to the show because
Open Table. That is so funny.
Like Jada, like if you like in my mind, maybe you watch this, just work it out. Do you know? Just work it out privately. It's all right. Not we have to do everything here.
Exactly.
So listen, if now I'm going to say to people, literally, just go and find, like, politely go and look for Sarah on Instagram and TikTok. Don't be like hunting her down, like stalking and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, go and find her, because if this conversation really kind of made you start thinking, then every time I see like Sarah's posts and Sarah's videos and content, it always makes me think. And also even the ones that you do when you're just like unashamedly you and just like reminding people of your fabulousness and beauty, I love that as well. So I always hype you up. Yeah, I always hype you up. So yeah, if you just want to be positively uplifted but also learn some things, then I suggest that you go and give Sarah a follow. Yeah. So that's it. I think we've done our time. Look, at least we can technically finish before it's an hour and a half. Do you know? I always say an hour. I know. I'm sorry.
Thank you for inviting me on. It's an honor and a privilege to share your audience with you today. So I hope I behaved myself well.
No, listen, they know I'm rebellious. I'm
in your house, and so I want to be a good
guest. There's only one way there's two words that we always need to apply when we're here on my platform, and that's real talk. If anybody, I wouldn't have invited you if I thought you would be anything other than yourself. So I do have people wanting to do all sorts. So I'm like, you're not ready. I'm honest. You're not ready. I'm really honestly, listen, you're not ready. You need to, yeah, just because it's LinkedIn, like we don't need to all come like, and oh yes, Shireen, so the thing about colorism is no, we got to give real talk. we got to give real talk. So we can say goodbye to everybody. So thank you everybody who stayed with us. Do you know what I mean? Even because we were taking it to church and then some. We had to lay it all on the table. But like everything, it's just to help us be better. And hopefully you had a bit of a giggle as well.
I did.
We did.
Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you so much. So I'm going to disconnect, and we can leave people to come. People are going to be like, what were they talking about? Listen, is she talking about Jada Smith? What's Jada do there? Or random. Welcome to See you later, everyone.